Howdy folks, Greyhawk 4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. Today we're going to do the video that I've been promising about our tabletop D&D sessions back here. And but before we get into that, I do have to call back. I did a video a couple days ago about the sequel to Alien Isolation, which is known as Alien Blackout, which is going to be released only on mobile. And I had a whole rant about that and everything. There has been a new development. Apparently the company that is developing that, and whoever it is that holds the license and so forth, is also simultaneously, it sounds like, but as I do more research, it looks like it's just starting, but, quote, simultaneously, they're developing another Alien game. It's supposed to be a shooter MMO in the Alien universe, in the Alien movie lore universe. I'm a MMO lover. I played damn near all of them. Thousands of hours in EverQuest 2, Star Wars Galaxies, World of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings Online, Dungeons and Dragons Online. I mean, I've played a shit ton of that stuff. And the idea of an Alien game in an MMO environment shooter, first of all, I think that is going to take an awful lot of development if they plan to do it correctly. Because we really don't know. I mean, most of the Alien movies, that take place on a spaceship, we don't know, a lot about what's happening on Earth and other planets, and we have no idea about any of that stuff. Now, maybe I could be, if there are novels that I'm unaware of in the Alien universe, fill me in. But as far as I know, we know what we've seen in the movies. And of course, there are a couple that I've missed. I missed the more recent ones that weren't necessarily Alien in the title, and I can't think of them right now. But you guys will know which ones I'm talking about. So maybe they went into some more depth there about the actual universe and world and all that. But I still think that it's going to take an awful lot if they're going to do it correctly. That to flesh all that out is going to take a lot of effort, a lot of time, and so forth. And the website for the company that's developing it still shows that they're hiring people for the project. So that to me sounds like it's definitely in its infancy. So that's one of the things where we're just going to have to wait and see how that all goes. But they kind of hurried that. They got that announcement out there after they saw the pushback that they got about this mobile game. And I thought that was kind of interesting because they kind of went, oh shit, we don't want to be Blizzard with the whole Diablo, don't you guys have phones thing, So I don't take anything back from the video I did, but it's interesting to know that now they're definitely working on something else. So we'll see. So that's out of the way now. So let's talk about the D&D stuff here. Now, if any of you are watching and you're not into the tabletop thing, the rest of this video probably won't interest you, but you're welcome to stay, and maybe you'll get interested or whatever. This is mainly for my fans and followers that do like the tabletop stuff. So, as you know, I took about 6 months away from doing YouTube videos, and at that time, before I stopped, and we were doing our first edition. I call it my first/second edition campaign back here because I use certain elements from second edition in my campaign when I DM, and it's set in the Greyhawk universe, the World of Greyhawk universe, and we had been doing that for quite a while. The player characters, I believe, were all 7th level, and in first edition rules, 7th level is that's quite an accomplishment. I mean, it takes a long time to level in first edition. So they had done any number of trials and tribulations. They had explored the Temple of Elemental Evil. They had done the treasure hunt module. That's how they all started, because you start at 0 level. They had done that. I'm trying to think what else. Of course, the Village of Hamlet, which is it's separate. It's actually a separate module, but it's in the super module as well. And when we left off, they had just entered into the Ghost Tower of Inverness, and that's where we stopped because we lost some people. We lost a permanent player some time ago who no longer could play on Friday nights, and then we had what I call a seasonal player, Brad, one of our other players here. His son comes down from college when he's on a break, and he'll play when he's back home and in the area. But then when he goes back to college, of course, he can't. And so I call him a seasonal player. So we had lost him, and we'd lost that permanent spot, and we just couldn't find anybody else that wanted to play first or second edition here in this area. So we decided, let's switch back to 5th edition. Our buddy Jonathan, who DMs our 5th edition stuff, he said that he had been working on a homebrew campaign, and the timing was okay, and we'll just switch over to that. So that's what we did. And I'll just tie it up in a nice little bow here. So with my campaign, if any of you have been following it going way back, you know that I have a faction called the Watchers in my campaign. And they are kind of the boogeymen of the realm. And to put it into modern day terms, they're basically like the mafia of my World of Greyhawk setting. They're the organized crime syndicate of the realms, and they're in cahoots with a lot of the politicians, the mayors of the different towns, and some of the royalty and so forth, and they provide a service, protection, of course, and information and those types of things, and they get kickbacks and city watches look the other way when their people are doing certain things, that whole thing. One hand washes the other. But the bottom line is they are the badasses of the realm because they want everything kept secret. Modern time, mob people don't want other people knowing that they're in the mob. And so if somebody could be, compromised and could spill the beans, they tend to just eliminate them. And in my campaign, that's what the Watchers do, right? And so our player characters had been basically being hunted by the Watchers because they knew that our players were aware of them, and they wanted basically to silence them and take them out of the playing field. But the way I tied it up at the ending there was, I basically said that our players had been Manchurian candidated, that the city of Devers, where they're based out of, they made it, everybody there that are players in that city, that are, bigwigs in that city, had basically painted a picture for them to make them want to go after the Watchers. But the people, the bigwigs themselves, were the ones that were behind them getting captured, which was their motivation to actually go after the Watchers and rescue their family members and all that. That was all orchestrated by the actual good guys. But they figured that was the only way to get them motivated enough to get them on the inside where the Watchers were and take them out from the inside. And of course, so that was the big reveal at the end was, you guys have been, being hunted, and you guys are trying to figure out how to take them out and everything else, but the whole time you've been being played by, the powers that be, because they felt that if they told you the truth, you would be reluctant, and so you were Manchurian candidated to do that. And the way that I ended it with the resolution with the Watchers was that St. Cuthbert himself had gotten involved because one of the player characters was a disciple of Cuthbert, and he had been ultimately, in his role-playing, had been ultimately devoted to Cuthbert. I mean, that guy was a cleric, and he played that part, and he made sure that no matter what else was going on, he made sure that he was doing his due diligence for Cuthbert. And so, as a reward, Cuthbert got involved and said, hey, let me handle the Watchers as a deity. I'm going to take care of these guys. And that's where we left it with there. And our players were rewarded with a small keep and some land, and that's where we left them. So I've left it open for the next chapter. If we go back to that campaign, we can take right back up there. You know, the Watchers have been handled at this point where we left off as far as they're concerned, and we can go from there. So that's how I left that off. Our new campaign, the 5th edition one, homebrew, our buddy Jonathan's running it, and I don't want to give a whole lot away because I have no idea what his idea is for this content. I don't know if he plans to ever publish this through, say, the DM's Guild or something like that for 5th edition. So I don't want to compromise that. But let's just say that it is completely homebrew. It's all his own creative ideas. There's a couple different races, factions, that have been warring for years, like 300 years, and the humans are involved, and you know, as adventurers, we come in kind of in the middle of all this, and we decide that the storyline grabs us, and you know, we're faced with decisions of what we're going to have to go do and all that. That's all I want to say about, you know, unless Jonathan comes forward and says, hey, yeah, you can talk about the whole thing, the plot, everything, you know, the background, all of it, then I might do a different video and we can do that. I might even have Jonathan, if he wants to, he can sit in and we can both talk about it. But rest assured, we're having a lot of fun with it every Friday night. I'm playing a monk, Tram, T-R-A-M, Tram the monk, and I come from a monastery that, of course, I was orphaned. How else does a monk, you know, end up at an orphanage or at a monastery, right? Got to be orphaned, right? And raised, of course, by the monks there. Joined the order, the whole bit. Then decided I want to go become a adventurer. And this particular monastery is they're known to actually be somewhat of a mercenary type deal, you know. So I go out to be a mercenary and everything, and my character ends up dying early on. My monk died, and the god that he was following did not intervene to save him from death. However, a different deity did. But my character with Tram was given the option of, well, I can save you, but you have to devote yourself to me now. You have to swear your fealty to me now. And of course, I did that because I didn't want my character to die. Tram took that choice and said, yes, I want to live. And of course, he was resurrected by this deity and so forth. And now, of course, he's following a different deity. And what I did is, this is how your players can drive the narrative. See, I started right out of the gate, when we were fighting, whether it was goblins or whatever it was, the very first kill that I was part of, the monastery that I was from was the Monastery of the Red Hand. That was my background. I came up with that, the Monastery of the Red Hand. And so, on the spot, I just decided I'm going to take, I think it was goblin blood, I'm going to take some of his blood, the red blood, and put it on my hand, and then put it in the middle of this goblin's chest as a mark that I had been the one that had taken him down and so forth. And I had done that, you know, with all the different entities that we've slain and everything, I've been leaving my red hand behind, because I was of the Red Hand Monastery. I thought that'd be kind of cool. But after I got resurrected and had to follow this new deity, my character is starting to question whether or not, because he's supposed to be sending money, gold back, coin back to the monastery as part of his, being a member of the monastery. He's got like a tithing, he's got to send money back and so forth. But now my character is starting to have second thoughts, because he's saying, well, wait a second. That God wasn't there for me when I needed him most, and this other deity came in and saved my ass. Why am I going to be sending money back to them? And so forth. And so now I've driven the narrative for my character. Now the DM is having to react to me, because now I've created this new conflict between me and my monastery, and I have a new deity, and there's going to be other followers from that deity, and whether or not I'm going to continue to be part of the Red Hand, we don't know yet. But I started driven that narrative in that direction, and now that gives the DM something else he's got to consider. So that was just something there that, like a lot of people in groups they put everything on the DM to drive everything. And you don't have to do that. As you're playing your character, you can truly get into it and drive your own narrative. And then the DM will always respond to that. The DM will always try to work that in, unless it's something completely out of the norm and weird and just that breaks the game or something like that. But other than that, DMs are always going to want to try and figure out how can they incorporate this into their overall narrative, as kind of a side thing, to give you more, to reward you more for role-playing, by following your narrative and getting involved and all that. So, anyway, that's where we're at. After I talk to Jonathan and find out how much more of this I can divulge, and maybe have him on as a guest, we'll see how that goes. But that's it for this gaming vlog. I figured we're at almost 18 minutes, so better cut it short there. And, oh, by the way, real quick, I don't know if you guys are following Jablinski Games. I talked about Jack Black starting his own channel, Jablinski Games, and he and I are having a beard off. He doesn't know it, but we are. And if you go and you see his latest video, you can see he might have a wider beard than I do, but there's no way in hell his beard looks better than this. This beard is the shit. This beard is epic. His is all scraggly and patchy and shit, and everything else. I think I've got him, but you guys can be the judge of that. Tell me what you think. Anyway, and by the way, he's also stealing my goddamn tagline. He said, catch you on the flip side when he ended his last video. What the fuck, dude? Middle-aged, we're the same exact age. He looks kind of like me. Glasses, beard, everything else. And then he's stealing my fucking tagline, too? What the hell? Talk to you later. We'll catch you guys on the flip side.